Eleanor, to understand what are persons, the nature of consciousness, there are two ways that I'm normally thinking about. One is the analytic, the third person, that, what's in the brain, how can you characterize different behaviors, very objective. The next way is the internal, the subjective, what do I really feel inside, how to relate the two. There's a third way that most people don't talk about that you focus on, which is the second person, the interrelationship. How can that help me understand what are persons?
Well, I think the whole notion of the second personal is becoming very important for all kinds of areas of philosophy, for philosophy of mind, for ethics, for philosophy of literature, philosophy of art in general, for philosophical theology, for sure. And all sorts of people are interested in trying to understand the answer to your question. So one of the reasons we're so interested in this question is it looks to very many people as if the impairment in autism is an impairment in the ability, those cognitive abilities that enable us to interact in second personal ways. So here's what we now understand, that from birth, infants are primed to relate to some things as persons and to catch emotions, to share attention with other persons. So infants have from birth an ability to mimic facial expression, for example, because somehow, even from birth, the innate brain system that lets you appropriate somebody else in a shared mind kind of a way is present and active. I mean, I don't know how to say it right, and I don't think anybody else knows how to say it right either. But it looks as if in the mirror neuron system, for example, and in who knows what other kinds of neural systems there might be that we will eventually find out about, there are brain mechanisms that enable us to do what philosophers and psychologists and neuroscientists call some kind of mind reading. Now, mind reading can be at a high level. We think that children ordinarily don't do mind reading of that high level sort till they're maybe 4 or so on. But from birth, there seems to be a low level kind of mind reading that even neonates can do. That's why they can imitate facial expressions. If you hold a newborn baby up in front of you and stick out your tongue, that baby will try to stick its tongue out too. It's catching from you something about your mind and something about that facial expression. It's catching it and can reproduce it. So one thing you might say is that to be a person is to be able to connect in more or less competent ways to other people in a mind-reading kind of a way. That's what it is. And here's what I would say, because I do philosophy of religion and I like that kind of stuff. I would say, here's the explanation of this. This is what we are. Augustine says to God, you, using a second personal mode of address, you have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you. So Augustine is saying not only is a person somebody innately built to be able to relate as I to you with other persons, but a person is somebody who's made to relate in that I-you way to God himself. That's what we are, that's what we're built for. And I like that answer.
And so you see great commonality between the concept of how we exist as human to human in the interpersonal relationship to the interpersonal relationship that humans should have or need to have with God. It's very parallel.
Oh yes, absolutely. And just as our internal divisions within ourselves, our internal conflicts, our insecurities, our depressions, our worries and so on, can leave us walling other people out so that we can have a kind, you might say, of willed loneliness. Not that we want to be lonely, but that what we will produces a kind of loneliness for us because the conflicts inside us, our internal alienation from our own selves, shuts other people out. You can do that with God also. You can do that with God also. So that one of the things we hope for in our lives is that whatever it is within us that keeps us from loving connection with other people can be healed or overcome or matured or something, so that our lives are rich in shared union of love with other people. So in philosophical theology, we can hope for that in our lives with relation to God also.
How unique is this second person to human beings? One would seem to see analogous things in the animal world. Are they the same?
They are certainly the same in some respect, no question about it. I mean, we have studies that make it overwhelmingly clear. In fact, one of the things that's interesting is that the mirror neuron system, which we think underlies our ability to do this, it's widely conserved throughout evolution. So we find it, for example, in songbirds. So it's not that we think songbirds can do mind reading or whatever it might be, but for sure there is some kind of ability to act in concert in I-thou ways that is found widely in the animal kingdom. And emotion is catching across species too. I mean, it's not just that within species we've got this, but across species we've got it. If you yawn, your dog will yawn. Catch the yawn from you, see? So the system that enables us to do this as persons has got analogs in the other animals as well. Now, what this means about how we should treat the animals, that's going to be a complicated subject. But for sure, what we are now finding is that animals are capable of kind of interaction that just a few decades ago no one would have thought possible. Lab rats are capable of showing empathy to one another. A couple of decades ago, no one would have believed that. Yeah.
But you would not claim that animals have a relationship with God. So in this second person, what is it about human beings as persons that can have a relationship with God that animals cannot?
Where would you get the idea I would think animals couldn't do this? See, why?
I'm ready to be wrong.
Yeah, see, why do we have to think that somehow everything operates like a machine except us? If you look at what God says to Job about the animals in the Hebrew Bible, I like that a lot. He reminds the ostrich where she left her eggs when she forgets. You know, the baby animals, let him know in case they're hungry. So, in fact, in the book of Job, what's really interesting is God presents himself as having I-thou relationships with every single part of his creation, including the inanimate parts. So here's a way to think about it. Aristotle teaches us this idea. Everything that there is a mode of being. And the major monotheisms say something about God is being, and traces of God are in all his creation. All his creation participates in being. Here's another way to think about it. If at the ultimate foundation of all reality there is something with a mind and a will, a person, then all creation will bear marks of personhood too. So in the book of Job, God says to the ocean, hey, so far and no further. After this, you can't go. See? So what the book of Job suggests is that there are traces of personhood, just as there are traces of being in all creation. What exactly that means, how to make it philosophically precise and accurate, I have no idea. But I like the idea. Like it, yeah.